Does any one copy? We're not receiving anything.
That puts our last contact with Mission Control at
3 weeks.
Why is it so quiet?
That's either. It's a spaceship that we hoped would be our future.
Nice to see you again, Ms. Jones. We talked 4 years ago at the Rogue One junket, and that was like such a cool, memorable experience. And it's nice to be talking to you again for this movie, which I think is really going to touch people when they get a chance to see it later this month. So, the first thing is, the movie is sci-fi, but it's a different kind of sci-fi movie. So tell me a little bit about why you wanted to play Sully and what attracted you to this movie.
I really liked Sully's interiority. I really tapped into this theme in the film of waiting when I first read the script, of these characters having a lot of time to think and ponder some of the bigger questions in life, and thinking about the meaning of life, knowing that the world perhaps has come to an end, and where that leaves them. I never thought it would be quite as relevant to those themes and issues as they are now, as a lot of us, if we're lucky, have time to be thinking, and that was definitely a huge aspect of it. It was a meditation and an exploration in part of isolation and loneliness and the desire for connection.
How does, going along with that, how does what's going on in the world right now kind of deepen the themes of the movie? Because, when you completed it, no one knew how the world would change and how things would be so different. So how do you think it deepens, people's experience with the film?
Well, I feel that people are looking for answers. So it has a more edge of your seat experience as you're watching it, because you can't quite believe how topical it is, and it's addressing so much of what we're dealing with in this epoch. So I think it intensifies your relationship to those characters and the need for them to succeed and for them to triumph, which is a moment we're in ourselves now, is we're looking to the future and hoping the future is going to bring something better.
Your real life pregnancy, I think, gave the film a real emotional resonance. Of course, the movie would have been emotional without it, but talk a little bit about how that, you and George decided to include that and really make that part of the story.
Yes, it was a very instinctive process. Originally, we were going to CGI the bump, and that's usually what happens. I mean, it's fascinating. There are countless female performances from many films where actresses have been pregnant, but you would never know because of either technical wizardry or standing behind tables. So we were going along that course. And then after a week of shooting, George was looking at all the footage, and he started to reevaluate that decision. And he thought, actually, there's something really interesting in this. And Sully being pregnant is, because I'm seeing it on screen, this is before the CGI had happened, and it's really bringing an extra dimension. And so we discussed it, and he wanted to know if I would be happy to be pregnant in the film. And I felt instinctively, actually, I could see when I went back and looked at the script that it made total sense, and it actually heightened the stakes for everyone on that ship and gave it, as you say, an extraordinary emotional resonance.
How does a film like Midnight Sky enrich that genre and add layers to the sci-fi genre?
Well, it's as you say, it's sci-fi with a brain, isn't it? It's like the best sci-fi. I mean, like Solaris, is that through sci-fi we get to explore a philosophical side to our lives. We get to probe into some deeper questions by distilling the world into a spaceship. Which obviously has been the legacy of something like Space Odyssey 2001. So Midnight Sky is definitely along that continuum, is that we are asking questions about connection, what it means to connect to other human beings. What happens if we feel we haven't done that? What do we prioritize? And ultimately, what is the meaning of life, which is a pretty big question, but done through the genre of a space action film, which I always find that's a best way of asking those questions.
George is intriguing as an actor for sure, but I think he's done some really great work behind the camera as a director. What was it like to be directed by Mr. Clooney?
Very relaxed. Everything is very laid back. He has a very familiar way of working. He's completely inclusive, very non-judgmental. He cares about the community spirit on set. He inspires great respect from everyone around him, from crew and cast. And then he likes to move very quickly. He knows exactly what he wants from everyone. It's quite extraordinary. You can feel that, 50 years of experience. Maybe that's too much. You wouldn't like to say that. Maybe 40 years of experience. I've just made him about 100. He's not 100. And he brings that wealth of knowledge to the set. So it's everything you would expect and more.
What was the experience like doing a film like this for Netflix? I mean, you have done Amazon with the Aeronauts, but this is a movie I very much would have liked to have experienced in a room full of strangers, particularly that last final scene, which I find really haunting and really stuck with me. So talk a little bit about that. And is this kind of our future of seeing these kind of big movies, but in a more intimate environment?
Well, in terms of the experience with Netflix, I mean, they're fantastic. They completely let the creatives do what they want to do and give you total freedom to do what you're best at. And then, as you say, I mean, we're in a changing moment, aren't we? I do believe that cinema will sit alongside home entertainment. I feel that you'll always want both. I think it is wonderful at the moment that we are getting to see grown-up stories. I was watching Queen's Gambit recently that gave me so much hope in the return to proper storytelling. I mean, exquisite storytelling. So I think the world is big enough to contain both.
You just mentioned Queen's Gambit. What other things have you sort of binge watched or rediscovered over these last months being at home and lockdown?
Yeah, I've also been watching The Crown, and then obviously bringing back intriguing remembering Diana again, and then watching some of the documentaries about her, and then just watching Nikita, Luc Besson film, just as you say, going back into films that you haven't seen for ages and rediscovering them. But it's one of my favorite things to do is sit down and watch a film with a glass of wine.
Midnight Sky is a gorgeous looking movie. Tell us a little bit about how you did some of those ZeroG scenes.
I mean, for me, were remarkably straightforward and very comfortable, as the extent of my stunt work was to be sitting on a very comfy stool, watching other people, namely David and Tiffany, work extremely hard on the wires. So I had a sort of quite chilled, luxurious experience. But it's phenomenal what it's sort of the technical wizardry that goes on. You wouldn't believe, that literally I'm sort of sitting on a seat with an arm that's being powered by a human being, and then you watch the film and it's all disappeared and it all looks perfect, and we look like we're a million miles away in space.
Speaking of scenes, what did you think of that last scene of the movie? I mentioned it was really haunting. It stuck with me. I think I'll always remember that. Particularly when I think of you and your work, I think it's really lasting. Without spoiling it for people, what was your impression of ending the film that way?
Well, interestingly, when we were doing that scene, I remember George saying, and I think we did 2 takes on that actually. But I remember him saying, "Oh, just touch the small of your back as you get up." And I remember doing it, and then I remember thinking, I think I went and said to George, I was like, was that a bit much? When you see people playing pregnant women, they're always sort of, walking around with aches and pains, and it's always just slightly overplayed. So I was worried about that throughout the filming, because you can be quite, athletic when you're pregnant. And so he said, no, it's, I feel it's going to work. And then actually when I watched the end of the film, it was so important to have that moment to then reconnect the audience with the idea of the future, and the future being that unborn child. But it's a magical moment, a very quiet moment in the film. It's very special.
When we spoke 4 years ago, we didn't know what Rogue One was going to become, or Jinner. So, and then a few months ago, I saw a headline from you saying that you still have unfinished business with Jin. Talk a little bit. I mean, would you like to go back to the Star Wars world, and just your overall impression of Rogue One? I mean, it was trending just the other day on Thanksgiving, out of the blue, because I guess people were really excited. So
pretty good, that movie, isn't it? People seem to like it. It's I mean, I loved that character. I really enjoyed playing her. I liked how she was so careful with her words. I liked how she communicated through fighting. I thought that was interesting. I loved learning. I mean, it was absolutely killing and hard work, but I did love learning all those martial arts sequences. I just character to play, so wouldn't mind doing it again.
And then something I didn't get to ask you about was Black Cat. But now that, things seem to be crossing over between Sony and Marvel, is that a character you would like to, I mean, you didn't get to fully explore her in Spider-Man 2, but is that a character you'd like to come back and do again?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I love the variety. I love playing, that's such a large canvas, playing something like Black Cat. That's a lovely counterpoint to then doing smaller, more intimate work. But yeah, definitely never rule it out. Never.
So we're coming up to the holidays of Felicity. I got to ask you, what is your go-to holiday movie?
Oh gosh. Well, I do love It's a Wonderful Life, which I always say every year, we're not going to watch that again. And then we always end up watching it. What a beautiful story and a beautiful film. And it would be interesting to watch it in this context with the pandemic. I wonder how it alters one's viewing of it. But yeah,
sure, for sure.
List.
Okay, and then what's next for you? You kind of have a blank slate. What do you want to do next? What are you pursuing? What are you interested in?
Well, I started getting more involved earlier on in developing stories, looking for stories in books, being more hands-on in a bringing people together aspect, which very much feels like the way of the future with actors. But I've always loved being able to be involved in those early conversations creatively in terms of script development. So I'm optioning various books and projects and looking to explore that side of things, and then we'll always be open to doing great acting work in the right roles.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time again, Ms. Jones. It was great reconnecting with you. Have a wonderful day. Great morning.
Lovely, and you, lovely as ever.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All the best.